Hello and welcome to edumate.tv. I'm Chetan Sharma. We learn to live and live to learn in what has turned out to be an unprecedented situation, an unprecedented pandemic. With history being written across the geography of Mother Earth, and a minor virus has created a major catastrophe, making each and every one of us rewind, reboot, reset, reformat, rethink before we rebuild a new future, a new normal. In the world of education, particularly higher education, if there's one trait required to in some way mitigate the challenges and find solutions and also create opportunities, it's the trait of wisdom. Wisdom emanating from past experience and knowledge, and wisdom to be able to anticipate, embrace, evolve, expect, and overall transform the future. And that's why we have a very wise chancellor. Today we have a very special guest with us from Assam Don Bosco. We've got Dr. Stephen Mavely joining us from Guwahati. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Talk us through your experiences of the very challenging COVID environment.
Like for everybody else in the world, it's been a challenging and a bewildering time. But one thing I can say that as a university and as a person who is leading this university, we have never given in to panic, because panic is unreasonable and debilitating. We have tried to understand what is happening against historical perspectives. As a student of history, philosophy in my course of training for the priesthood, I read about a lot how the world dealt with the bubonic plague, the Spanish flu, the Black Death, HIV/AIDS, malaria, cholera, Ebola. And I have realized, and I feel that's a message that I have passed on to everyone who works with me, that the intricate workings of nature and evolution are not always within our grasp. And yet, we go on pretending to be masters of the universe. There's a slow evolution, though, taking place in this thinking, and hopefully, when this COVID scare is over, our younger generations will move strongly in that line than people of our age have done to create a more sustainable world. It gives us also an added impetus to get seriously into online learning. That's what we have done here in the university. For the last 10 years, we've been providing online education, reaching out to some 5,000 or more students in about 111 countries. And we have had some commendable degree of success in that. For the last 3 months, we went full steam ahead with online teaching for our students. And I must say, we have had varying degrees of success because internet accessibility and reach are the cause of some concern. Going forward, we are planning to provide 20 to 25% of our courses online for our regular students. We as a nation has tremendous depth, unlike many other countries, historically, culturally, philosophically. But we have never seriously tried to pull our weight proportionately in the rest of the world. It's a unique opportunity for us to project to the world the depth of our culture, the springs of our spirituality, our social secular democracy, our capacity for harmonious living in spite of all the hiccups that we are having about. I believe this is something fantastic that we can do as a country.
Thank you for highlighting the immense opportunity which the COVID actually provides. And just your analysis has been humble, it's honest, it's honorable, but most importantly, it's heartening. And I commend you for having just thought through the entire process. Very few people have managed to do that. It's really very inspiring, Dr. Mavely. But the ground realities can be very different. Because all that we may desire may have practical implications, practical implementation problems, which I guess governments across the country are facing, which is leading to a lot of conflict in thought. I mean, we must be sensitive that it's an unprecedented situation for every single government as well. But there seems to be a lot of evolution in different levels at different paces, which is leading to a lot of different opinions, a lot of different trends. And there is an opposition building up within students to pay fees, within parents to pay fees, within the online system, with the government policies, which are conflicting between state and center. So if I have to sum up the entire situation at some level, it is confusing, which is the last thing that you want in a pandemic. What you need in a situation of crisis is clarity. It may have its risks, but clarity is paramount. What's your point of view?
But we as a country, I think we need to take a very different look at this entire scenario that is unfolding before us. If you notice, and that's what we find in the papers and on the television, our rate of succumbing to this infection is very low compared to the rest of the world. We seem to have a lot of immunity by nature because of the lifestyles that we lead, maybe also because of the environment, which is not always as healthy as it should be, due to which we have picked up a lot of immunity, which the rest of the world do not have, especially the developed world. Should we behave in the face of this pandemic just as the rest of the world has done? Or should we develop our own unique models of dealing with it?
I think that itself is also a very beautiful thought, an ingenuous thought, particularly at a time when India is fighting hard to emerge. It is being recognized as a world leader. We need to chart our own course, not just as a country, but also as an institution, to be able to reflect what the correct practices ought to be going forward. So thank you for highlighting that, Dr. Mavli. But things on the ground in the education world have obviously been a little challenging, a little topsy-turvy. Talk us through how Assam Don Bosco has particularly overcome challenges and created opportunities, and what are the challenges still afresh with you, particularly on the admission part?
Admissions this year, we have gone totally online. We've been doing it online earlier too. But this year, there is the added problem that a lot of persons are not able to log on because of internet connectivity problems. But still, I can see it is going on slowly but surely, and we shall get there, the numbers that we require to keep this university on a sustainable basis. But let me perhaps talk about something that you mentioned a little while ago, about this whole idea of online education. It is already several years now, started in the Western countries, and it started percolating down to our own country to the better institutions. There is what is known as fracturization of education taking place, where a person could select whatever subjects or courses of study that he or she wanted to take and make a combination for himself or herself and ask a university to give a degree for you. But of late, that has gone further. More and more today, with the availability of courses online from the best universities in the world, from some organizations which are not even universities, a lot of courses are available of very distinct specialization, we might say fractured from different subjects in their entirety, which you feel that is useful for you, which you feel is something that attracts you. And then when you have done a number of these courses, you go to a university and say, I have so many credits from this university, that university, the third university, and something from your own university. Give me a degree that says that I am a graduate or a postgraduate or even a doctoral person. This has been happening, and this is something that we are encouraging here.
Right. The moment I heard the word fractured for a moment, it sounded a little negative, obviously. But then, yes, one realizes that once you get a fracture, you've got to repair the system. And I guess you're also alluding to that. But in terms of, you're also alluding to the need for interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary learning, which has now become the new normal, particularly in our endeavor to have a more holistic education. system, and and an entire character building, and a far more empowering process. So have you been able to, have you been an enabler and at SAM Don Bosco for that as well? Because that's something most universities are now offering.
In 1995, when I was the principal of St. Anthony's College at Shillong, I was the first one to introduce a bachelor's course in biotechnology in the whole country. It was something new that the UGC was trying to introduce. And I met with tremendous opposition from my own college. But we went through it, and within a matter of 3 years' time, it became the course that was most in demand. Here we have in Don Bosco University, the School of Life Sciences, which is again so very interdisciplinary that you would wonder whether it is chemistry or biology or botany or zoology or even parts of physics included there. This is the way forward today. I'm
rather intrigued by your sense of foresight and farsight. So I need to know a little bit more about you as a personality, because obviously you've studied a lot. You've done a lot of in-depth research and facts to be able to, have this kind of clarity and this foresight. To talk to us a little bit about Dr. Stephen Madden. Inspire us.
I must say that I have been singularly blessed. I've had exposure to sciences, to education, to mathematics, to mass communication, to philosophy, to theology. I've had exposure to India and probably some of the best universities abroad in Europe and America. And I have been a keen learner all my life. And when we decided as Don Bosco Society, I don't know if you're aware, Don Bosco Society is a worldwide society. We exist in 132 countries. We are about 16,000, 17,000 fathers and brothers in the world. When we decided that we will start a university in India and place it here in this beautiful part of India, Northeast India, we had one overarching resolve. That is that we should be able to mold persons who are dependable human persons and who can act anywhere in the world as persons who are educated, who are socially committed, and who have something within them that makes them people who will stand out and be a joy to have around. What I have experienced all my life as a person and the opportunities that I have been given has helped me to create an ambience in this university where our young people will learn to find their own dreams, move forward, and in pursuit of those dreams, affect life in the world.
When we look at the sense of learning, particularly at the position at the helm where you are, we only tend to focus on the students. We tend to think that they are the ones that need to learn. But we forget at times, and I've noticed this through my conversation with several people who are at the helm, that we overlook the teacher. Our focus entirely becomes the student. Whereas in the challenging environment that we have, the process of the teacher's transformation is far more critical and far more difficult, simply because they have to unlearn and then learn again. So how have you approached that?
Every year at the beginning of the semester, before the students come onto campus, we have what are called staff development programs or staff enrichment programs. And we get the best minds in the country and from abroad to give them programs for 3 days, 4 days, sometimes more than that are specifically geared to professional growth and personal growth. And as a result of that, we have a team that works together, that thinks together. We have every month meetings of our departments or our schools in order to discuss issues that are there in teaching and learning and in guiding students. We try to inculcate in our faculty a thinking that it is not merely teaching or research that matters, but also the larger issues of life, like the environment, like community development, community engagement. We have a center here called the Center for Developmental Studies and Initiatives. We reach out to dozens of villages as a result of that. And this year, we just have trained them with some professors from the University of Minnesota into what is called service learning. Service learning is a concept in which every student will be put through during their time in the university here through some introduction to the underpinnings of what it means to be engaged with the community around you, wherever you are. And then to spend 2, 3, 400 hours of real community service during the course of their stay here. And when they leave, together with their graduation certificate, they will get a certificate that says, here is a dependable human being who has done this, that, and the third thing, and who has also learned what it means to be a dependable human being. These are some of the initiatives that we are taking. And we have the privilege of being situated in a tea garden. In the course of the last 10 years, planted about 25,000 trees here. We've been recognized by the International Association of Universities, Association of Commonwealth Universities, as well as the Association of Asian Pacific Universities for our work in this regard. And so the education that we give, both for our faculty as well as for our students, is something that is, I would say, rather comprehensive. The old word we used to say was holistic, but today I would say it is much more comprehensive. It has to take into consideration the worries of the world, the concerns of the world.
You know, the more I talk to you, Dr. Mavli, the more I desire to learn from you. I already learned so much over these last 20-25 minutes, but not just me. I think there are lots more who need to learn from you and take advice from you. So I'm going to take 4 different sections of the education ecosphere and ask you to give your advice to them at this point in time. A, the student; B, the parent; C, the teacher; and 4th, the fellow vice chancellor.
For the students, I have only this to say, because that's what we are doing with our students. Every challenge, as it is usually said, is also an opportunity. We can either choose to be despondent, or we can roll up our sleeves and say, let me find out what I can do about this. And then get together and realize the things that can be realized. Hundreds of things can be done during this time of lockdown, of scare, of protecting ourselves. Our own students have come up with some of the things that would be useful for the wider world. Like, for instance, they have developed gloves that can automatically sanitize the things that they use. Sky is the limit as far as creativity is concerned. And this is the best time to bring creative juices into play. For the parents, one thing I have noticed, and I hope that will continue, due to the forced lockdowns, they have had far more time to spend with their children than they ever had. They have created new intimacies. They have created that loving relationship which probably was missing. As a result of which, you find a lot of students in universities and colleges today who are somewhat alienated from society, who do not know what role a parent can play in their lives. I believe these 3-4 months of lockdown would have taught them that success, work, accumulation of resources and money is not the only thing in the world. That children deserve a lot of their care and their concern. And that would be a fantastic contribution that they can do. And for the younger generation especially in our country, I hope that the hygienic practices that we have been insisting on now will become a pattern in their behavior, that they will be far more careful about hygienic practices than we, the elders, have been. And as a country, we will become an example in the world for something that we are not known for. We are known for our slums, we are known for our dirt, we are known for everything that is unsavory. I hope that will change too.
You know, Dr. Mavli, it's not just what you say or how you say, but most importantly, why you say is what deeply impresses. And as I converse with you and conclude this conversation, I'm just, bombarded by an alliteration of eyes when I look at you and I hear you. Insight, innovation, inclusiveness, a deep sense of Indianness, initiative, and above all, inspiration. You truly make a very wise chancellor. Thank you for talking to us.
It's a wonderful idea. Find the best people around the country and share their views. But I believe we need to have people who can inspire, but who do not get an opportunity perhaps to do so. And in that light, this initiative of yours is truly commendable.